Purim, Chag Purim Sameach, everyone. It's so wonderful to be with you. And it's bringing me so much joy just scrolling through the screen and seeing the folks who've come in costume. If you haven't done that yet, definitely do. And feel free, if you have one with you or you want to change your Zoom background, to mix it up a little bit today. So welcome to day 2 of our intensive on cultivating joy and playfulness in our spiritual practice in our lives. Chag Purim Sameach. Whether you are on your way to a Purim Seudah, a party or not, my hope is today that we can just have a lot of fun together so that we can welcome in that Purim spirit of revelry and play and good times. I want to begin where we began yesterday, which was with a teaching on beginner's mind. So this is a foundational orientation in our practice. At IJS, we call it hitlamdut, an orientation towards our present moment experience that invites us to perceive what arises as if for the first time, with a fresh perspective, right? When we pay attention to our minds, so often we see that we're very quick to value judge our experience. I like this, I don't like this. The good guy is worthy of my blessing, the bad guy is worthy of my curse, right? This is good, this is bad. But with beginner's mind, we take note that that's what's happening. And then instead of going down that rabbit hole of those judgments and interpretations and stories, we stay open, we stay present. We continue paying attention to what's here, bringing that spirit of curiosity, actually of not knowing. And so I want to just emphasize that not knowing, opening to not knowing, does not mean not caring. It actually just empties our cup, so to speak, so that we can be more open and more available to learn and discover something new, to experience life in its freshness, in its full vitality as it emerges moment by moment. And I want to invite this spirit of beginner's mind as our foundation for this whole week of practice. It's always our starting point. We're really inviting that inner child within to come out, to come play, to come discover what is here to experience in these teachings and in this practice. So it's not about getting it right or wrong. We are allowed to be beginners. We're allowed to not know. And I want to invite that spirit in now, right here. So as we settle in, and invite you to really just settle in, make yourself comfortable. As we settle in, we can just invite that intellectual knowing quality in the mind, that capacity to judge our experience, to interpret our experience, to soften. Can just soften and open to receive our experience right here, right now, with curiosity. In the space of openness, so much becomes possible. But Purim does not simply invite us into this beginner's mind, right? Purim actually invites us into a state of radical not knowing, as we also touched on a little bit yesterday. We're actually encouraged to shift our consciousness ad te lo yodat, into this place of not knowing until you don't know. Because things aren't always what they seem. Things aren't always as they appear to be. And in our Purim story, there's this concept of vinafochu, that things are flipped on their heads. You think one thing's going to happen and the opposite happens. You think that Mordechai is going to be killed. The Jews are going to be killed. Actually, Haman is killed. You think that this is going to happen. Actually, this other thing happens. Things aren't always what they seem. We think it's going to go one way and it's actually the other way. And we see this in our practice and in our own minds all the time, right? Our minds make up stories about our experience. Sometimes those stories that we make up are pretty harmless. Sometimes they're quite funny. Sometimes they cause us needless suffering also, or worry, just because of that story. There's a beautiful metaphor that I love to use to illustrate this concept, where there's an artist and she's painting a beautiful illustration of a tiger. And she's so good at it. She's such a good artist. It's so convincing that at a certain point, she looks at the canvas and the tiger looks so realistic that she screams and runs away. She screams and runs away. And in a way, we do that all the time. We make up stories in our minds. We interpret reality in a certain way, and it impacts us. So we're just letting go of that a little bit. And we can acknowledge that sometimes it can be quite funny also. Our minds can actually be quite funny. I want to share with you a story that I think describes this well. Several centuries ago, the Pope decided that all the Jews had to leave the Vatican. Naturally, there was a big uproar from the Jews. So the Pope agreed to debate this edict with a member of their community. If the Jews won, they could stay. If the Pope won, the Jews would have to leave. Knowing they had no choice, they picked old Rabbi Moshe to represent them. His Latin wasn't very good, but he was a man of great faith, well respected, known for his wisdom. He accepted on condition that it would be a silent debate. The Pope agreed. After all, what could be easier than a silent debate? On the day of this great debate, Moshe and the Pope sat opposite each other. After a minute, the Pope raised his hand and showed 3 fingers. In response, Moshe looked back and raised 1 finger. Then the Pope waved his fingers in a circle around his head. And in response, Moshe pointed at the ground. Finally, the Pope pulled out a wafer and a glass of wine. In response, Moshe pulled out an apple. The Pope threw his hands up. He stood up. He said, "I give up. I give up. This man is too good. The Jews can stay." As the puzzled cardinals clustered around the Pope, he explained, Moshe was just so good. Everything I had to say to him, he was able to answer me. First, I held up 3 fingers to represent the Trinity. In response, he held up 1 finger to remind me that one God is common to both of our religions. When I waved my finger around me to show that God was all around us, watching everything we do, he pointed down to show that God is also right here with us. And finally, when I showed him the wine and the wafer, to show that God absolves us from our sins, he showed me an apple to remind me of the original sin. He had an answer for everything. What could I do? Meanwhile, in the village, everybody was partying. They were very, very happy. And everybody was gathered around Moshe, all the Jews. And they said, "What happened? What happened?" They asked. "Well," said Moshe, "honestly, he says to me, 'You Jews have 3 days to leave.' So I said, 'Not one of us is leaving.' Then he tells me the whole city would be cleared of Jews. Not one will be left on the hillside." And I said, "We're staying right here." "And then?" asked the woman. "Who knows?" said Moshe. "He took out his lunch, so I took out mine." So things aren't always what they seem. Things aren't always what they seem on the surface, right? And we might all be sharing in a similar experience on the surface, but in reality, interpreting it in a completely different way. This actually happens all the time. This happens all the time. And in the consciousness of not knowing, beginner's mind and radical not knowing, we open ourselves to that possibility that things aren't what they seem. And when we can start to encounter our reality with more directness, with more presence, with less of that filter of interpretation, what's beneath the surface can become revealed. In our Purim story, part of what is revealed is God's presence in all of it. The Megillat Esther is so interesting because it never mentions the name of God. It never mentions the name of God. And of course, as the story progresses, it might seem like God is not present at all. Everything is heading to doom and gloom and destruction. And yet, what is revealed is that God was there all along and that everything's going to be okay. Queen Esther, the shoresh, the root of her name means hidden or concealed. And so Esther Hamalka, Esther the Queen Esther, means also the hidden queen, the hiding of the queen. God is hidden in that story. Our Hasidic tradition teaches that God's face, it's called Hester Panim, is hidden in the world. Actually, that our whole world, everything that we can experience within us and around us, are like garments for the divine. Ram Dass taught, he said, treat everyone you meet like God in drag. Treat everyone you meet like God in drag. It's kind of a radical invitation to consider how, in some way, we are all different faces of the divine. So I invite you to actually scroll through the screen right now and just take in the faces of the human beings that are here together on this Purim day to connect with playfulness and joy and spiritual practice. And the possibility that everyone on this screen is a hidden face for the divine. Everyone on this screen in some way is God in drag. The divine is shining through each person. Just take that in for a moment, that truth. I think sometimes on Zoom we forget that behind all these little boxes are these whole human beings with hearts and souls and so much beauty, so much holiness. So we're all different faces of the divine. Our whole world are garbs of the divine. I want to share with you a quote from Hillel Zeitlin. He wrote, "All that we call existence, with all its charming and entrapping attractions, the blue heavens over our heads, the earth beneath our feet, endless stars, light and radiance, joy and pleasure, beautiful textures." This is Purim, right? We're feasting. It's a feast of the senses. Plays of color, sorrow and tears, the whole dramatic story of it. I'm adding a little to my commentary. The roar of the sea, the whispers of springs, all that we pursue and seek out until flesh and spirit are wearied, all that we delight in attaining, all that we moan for when we lack, all of it is naught but illusion. All of it is naught but illusion. The more you reach for the nothing that lies within all being, the divine inwardness, the closer you are to truth, to the godly, to the essence of creation. You reveal the mask and see before you the king in all his glory, the queen in all her glory, the endless light. You reveal the mask and see before you the queen in all her glory, the endless light. So in a way, it's a radical idea. And on Purim, we really get to revel in this dimension of our experience. It's beautiful in a way. It might feel a little risky. It might feel a little scary. Play can be that way. It kind of requires a letting go and a playing with and pushing against the rules and the norms, right? This possibility that things aren't quite what they seem can feel destabilizing. And yet our story teaches that the divine is present. The divine is here winking at us, shining and sparkling through. Of course, one of the most common responses that we have as human beings when we realize that things aren't what they seem is laughter, right? Laughter is both acknowledging this kind of ungraspability of reality, that things can just be so beyond what we think and what we can even understand, and the presence of goodness, the possibility of joy. There's a Hasidic master of old who would start all of his shiurim, all of his lessons with laughing. First, he would just laugh with his students because of the way that laughter would open the mind and open the heart to wonder and awe. The Talmud tells a story of Rabbi Baroka, who stood with Eliyahu the prophet in the market. And he asked, is there anyone here? Is there anyone here in this marketplace who belongs in the world to come? Who has a place in the world to come? Elijah pointed out two brothers. And so the rabbi ran after them and asked them what their business was. They replied, we are jesters. We're jesters. We make sad people laugh. And when we see two people in a quarrel, we use some humor to make peace between them. So laughter is so important. These jesters have a place in the world to come. There are many other traditions, indigenous traditions, sacred traditions that have this sacred fool or trickster archetype whose behavior transcends our conventional understandings, evoking larger perspectives, helping us to remember, as so many people said in the chat, not to take ourselves too seriously. And it just feels good. It feels good to laugh. It's good for you. And it really is good for you. When I was a teenager, my very first introduction to the world of spirituality was actually through laughter. I used to go to a laughter yoga class, laughter yoga, laughter meditation, where a group of people, I was like 17, and it was all these adults like in their 30s, 40s, 50s, would gather at this cafe and just laugh for an hour, playing different silly games to get into that spirit. And I was like, what is this? What is this practice of laughing and playing, no matter what's happening in our lives, no matter what's going on in the world, to come together and laugh and play? Something about it feels actually so connected to wisdom. Something about it feels so liberating. Something about it feels so nourishing to my heart and soul. And it is incredibly good for our well-being. There's actually science that shows that on a biological level, laughter has a positive impact on our bodies, on our health. There have been studies of very ill patients, very ill patients in hospitals who began to heal and get better after being prescribed laughter therapy. And the beautiful thing about it is that biologically, there's actually no difference between real laughter and fake laughter, meaning that you can actually laugh even if you don't feel like it, and you're still getting those benefits. And of course, real laughter often follows the fake laughter. And so if you will indulge me and indulge one another, I would like to bring us into a practice of laughter meditation. I know some of you may have done this with Sarah Waxman at Rosh Chodesh Adar. We're going to do it again today. We are going to laugh. We're going to laugh together for 5 minutes. That may feel edgy, that may feel uncomfortable. And so I want to remind us all to bring a beginner's mind and that spirit of playfulness. This is certainly not about getting this right. It's not about, there's no right way to do this. There's no way to do this without looking like a fool. So if you're trying to not look like a fool, you probably will, but the good news is we all will together. So we're going to laugh for 5 minutes. And from there, we're going to go into our sit. Okay. So, of course, as always at IJS, everything is optional. Everything is your choice. And I do hope you'll join me. Jet is actually removing the mute function. So I want to really encourage you to unmute yourselves so that we can hear this cacophony of laughter and really feel each other's presence. Exactly. We're already getting started in the silliness. Here we go.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness. Tummy. Started with all kinds of laughs. A low belly laugh. A high-pitched laugh. Be an evil laugh.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh.
You can loosen up, shake it out. Okay, coming in. Landing. Okay. Some deep breaths. Take some deep breaths. Give yourself a pat on the back. Pat on the back. Give you a little clap. That was so great. That was so great. And Jet, you can gently mute everyone. You can continue giggling. Continue giggling. Coming in for a landing. And I invite you to just settle in. Come into some stillness. See if you can refrain to going into the discursive mind. See if you can refrain from analyzing that experience and just drop right into the body. Drop right into our sit. Take some deep breaths. And just notice what's present. Notice what's here in the body, in the heart, in the mind. Breathing in, breathing out. Again, there's no right or wrong, just noticing what's here after all that laughter. Maybe feeling the buzz. It's almost as if I feel as if all of my cells are buzzing, all of my cells are laughing and smiling from that beautiful moment together. Maybe there's still some laughter lingering. If there's still a little laughter, a little giggle, that's totally fine. You can just let it out as we settle into our sit together. So just taking those deep breaths and opening to be present to what is here. What is here emerging moment by moment in your experience. With curiosity, meeting whatever is arising, this buzzing, sound of birds, perhaps some emotion, some joy, or even some sadness. Whatever is here, welcoming it with that spirit of curiosity, playfulness, the possibility that all of it in some way is a costume for the divine. The divine is shining through every dimension of our experience. Meeting what arises moment by moment with that beginner's mind, with that spirit of play. And as the mind wanders, can we lovingly laugh with ourselves? Noticing the mind wandering, getting curious about whatever's coming later. Just a little laughter and come back, gently coming back to the moment. Lovingly laughing at the mind's tendency to be all over the place. That monkey mind. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just the way the mind is. And lovingly laugh and lovingly return. Just in the way that we would lovingly, playfully bring in a child who wants to run out into the woods to explore. Or maybe we'd go out into the woods to explore with them, but we want to be present with them, right? Want to be present for this experience. Noticing that wandering mind, that monkey mind. lovingly laughing at it, gently and playfully returning. As if this practice is a game, a beautiful game. Can bring a spirit of playfulness to our presence. Making space for curiosity, for delight. Perhaps even a little bit of mischief. Continually opening to receive what is here, what is emerging. Curiosity with playfulness, the light touch. For the last part of our practice, I want to invite you to go into your memory of playing as a child. How did you play as a kid? Were you mostly by yourself or with friends, perhaps imaginary friends? What made you feel so free? You'd lose track of time. You were so fully present. Maybe you created imaginary worlds or danced or made music. Can you remember how it felt? That feeling of play, of timelessness and freedom. I invite you to just bask in that feeling, bask in that memory. And if you notice a smile, let it linger. I invite you to take 5 deep breaths. As we complete our practice, I want to end with a poem from Kaylin Hott called God Says Yes to Me. God says yes to me. I asked God if it was okay to be melodramatic, and she said yes. I asked her if it was okay to be short, and she said, it sure is. I asked her if I could wear nail polish or not wear nail polish, and she said, honey, she calls me that sometimes. She said, you can do just exactly what you want to do. Thanks, God, I said. And is it even okay if I don't paragraph my letters? Sweet cakes, God said. Who knows where she picked that up? What I'm telling you is yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming together today to practice and to play and laugh and be in that child mind together. I wish Chag Purim Sameach, a very, very happy day to all of us, however you are celebrating. May this joy and freedom of spirit and laughter infuse our day with beauty and connection and delight. Thank you, friends.
Thanks, Rebecca. And there was a question that just came to me. Are these sessions recorded? Yes, they're all on our YouTube channel. So just go on YouTube and look for Institute for Jewish Spirituality, and you have years worth of these sessions. So a treasure trove, all on YouTube. We're going to hang around for a few minutes to have a conversation and share reflections and questions if you can stay. And if you can't, that's totally fine, and hope you will come back tomorrow at the same time, same channel, or whenever you can join us. Right now, we're going to take a minute for those who are reciting Kaddish to do so in memory of anyone in particular. If you want to, or no one in particular at all, but just in general, if you want to put the name of anyone that you are thinking of as you're saying Kaddish today into the chat, please feel welcome to do that. And we'll put the text of Kaddish up on the screen. And you're welcome to unmute and join me in saying Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei rabbah v'alma divrach v'yitei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yom v'chayei l'chol beit Yisrael v'agala v'zman sarim v'ru amen.
Amen.
Yehei shmei Rabba Yivarach v'Alma v'Alma Barach v'Yishbach v'Yitpa'al v'Yitmaman v'Yitnaseh Yithadar, La'ela, Minchol, Bishirata, Tushbachata, Nechemata, Amiran, Amen.
Amen.
Yehi Shama Rabba, Min Shemaya, Chaim, Aleinu, Amen.
Amen.
Shalom, Aleinu, Yalkol Yisrael, Yalkol Yoshvei.
Amen.
Okay. So thank you again. And Rebecca, thank you. And happy Purim. That was a lot. Whew. That was a workout. That was a workout of a practice today. Heck of a session. It's really striking to me because it's like the truth is the word laughter. I'm going through my mind. I've listened to the Megillah a couple of times now in the last 24 hours. And I don't think the word laughter actually appears in the Megillah, right? We have lightheartedness, and we have deep despair, and then we have like v'nahafochu, it's turned upside down. But laughter itself is really interesting. Like, there's that sort of healthy distance that laughter, involves. And I found myself sort of feeling that as we were doing the practice. It's like, right, there's like this healthy, you have to, there's just sort of a healthy distance. I wonder if you like want to comment on that aspect for a second of like, to me, it involves sort of being able to hold and be held gently by reality, right? Holding it lightly or being held by it lightly.
Yeah. By healthy distance, are you saying a distance from the events itself? To be able to
it's like
laugh
you have
at
to be
something
part of
looking
it.
back?
We have to be part of it, but not part of it, right? And there's like this healthy engagement, but also not, being totally absorbed by it, I guess. Right. That's sort of present in laughter. I wonder about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, maybe there are many different kinds of laughter. I know that I think one of the main like laughter really comes up in response to something just being totally not what it seems to be, but usually when there's also the presence of goodness, right? When there's also the presence of pleasantness or joy. Otherwise, that can actually feel like really, really destabilizing. And maybe it's also okay to feel destabilized sometimes when it's still in that greater context of the presence of goodness. I have a memory one time of I was on a meditation retreat and I have a memory of being on that retreat and crying. I was like deeply moved by something that somebody shared in the service, maybe a drash or a story that somebody shared about their lives. And I was crying because it was so moving to me. And it also helped me to realize, like have a breakthrough insight about my own life. That was kind of being a fohu moment. Like, oh my God, I suddenly realized that something was different than I thought from hearing this person's story. And my crying kind of turned into laughter. And then I was kind of crying and laughing. And it kind of reached the place where I wasn't sure if I was crying or if I was laughing. And I realized on some level, with crying and laughter, when you're doing it to its full extent, when it's really uninhibited, it feels almost the same in the body. It's almost the same. There's this shaking. There's this just sound. It's compulsive. I'm not regulating it, right? It's spontaneous. It's happening on its own. And it's a deep release. It's cathartic. And it's something I mentioned yesterday. It's something we'll continue mentioning this week. It's so important, I think, when teaching on joy and playfulness, that it's not separate from sadness. It's not separate from sorrow. And in some way, when we have capacity, we have capacity. We have capacity for joy. We have capacity for sorrow. And again, I love that we talked about this yesterday, but I love Alan Liu's teaching that joy is any emotion felt in its fullness, any emotion. If we're laughing, if we're crying, if we're feeling despair, if we're feeling joy, whatever it is, fully expressed, that's simcha. And so, yeah, laughter's not mentioned in the Megillah, but I imagine they were probably laughing. They're, all that revelry, all that celebration.
Well, they had simcha, right? Like
They had simcha.
right? That line, the Jews had light and gladness and joy and delight, right? That we recite as part of Havdalah on Saturday night.
Right,
But it's
right.
also, it like you said, that's that deeper sort of sense of what's there.
Yeah.
And there's the absurd element of it, right? It's also like Purim is this time of just appreciating, like, this is all totally absurd. Like, life is absurd, right?
Absurd.
Right, and allowing ourselves to just, yeah, okay.
I just noticed a lot of people laughed when you said that. It's like, yeah, wait, what?
Right. Like it's all crazy. It's all absurd.
It's like, do we dress up in costumes on Purim, or on Purim do we realize that we're always dressing up in costumes, in lots of different costumes, right? Yeah.
Lester's bringing up a really good question, which is about, the difficulty of the text, especially chapter 9 of the Megillah, right, and the violence that is perpetrated, right, that the Jews perpetrate ostensibly in self-defense, but it seems to go further than that potentially, and how to square that, right, with with all of this, and I think obviously that's also on some of our minds right now in terms of current events and what's happening in Israel.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you want to, in terms of this practice and how that squares. I mean, when reality can be really real, right? I wonder if you want to comment on that.
Yeah.
In any way.
Yeah. I want to say a few things, and Lester, I want to thank you for bringing this in. It's really important. One, actually, well, okay. I want to say one thing, I think. With part of what's really important about a playful approach to practice, and I really do think that Purim in its essence is inviting us into it's a playful holiday. It's a holiday of revelry. Part of what's important about play is that it is pretend. It is a game. It is play, right? There's a story in the Talmud of a rabbi who gets so drunk on Purim that he kills his friend. He kills his friend because he gets so drunk and so to the point of not knowing, right, the difference between good and bad, or blessing or cursing. And he kills his friend. And miraculously, his friend comes back to life. And then the next year he invites him to come to his house again. And he's like, no way, I'm not coming over again. You killed me last year. We can't rely on miracles, right? And so there's a way in which we need to hold the story lightly. And when those themes start to come into our real life and we are actually like, oh, we need to take revenge, we have enemies that like we need to slaughter and we need to kill, there's a danger there. And there can feel sometimes like a line between play and when does it get real and when does it become maybe too risky or too dangerous.
Yeah.
My friend Rabbi Amichal Levi from Lab Shul in New York City, he actually wrote a beautiful piece right now responding to the events happening in Israel. And he called for Jewish communities throughout the world to actually put down the grogger, the noisemaker that we make noise with when we hear Haman, when we hear Haman's name in the story, as a gesture of expressing that we're not going to respond to violence with violence. We don't need to respond to violence with violence. And when we forget that these sacred myths are sacred myths, and we start to project those archetypes onto real human beings, it's not pretty, right? And so, there's something there. There's something there that's really important to explore. And I think that's when the play and like thinking about how we relate to children becomes really helpful, because it's like, yes, let's jump off the cliff, but like only if it's a fake one. Don't actually do something that'll put you in danger, but let's engage in the revelry. Let's engage in the myth. It has a lot to teach us about our human story, and let's keep it there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think that's also like, it's a really important thing also to remember. Something I imagine may come up in my conversation tomorrow night with Michael Strassfeld, but I think, again, the book, Judaism Disrupted. But I think that something about, our relationship with our text is playful. Right. This is, and this already gets us thinking about Pesach. Like Pesach is the time when we really see this. Is like these two holidays are very much children's holidays, and they're built around play. And Pesach is very much built around play, hiding and seeking, and all sorts of things. And but that play also comes up with words, right? And it comes up with our reading. And part of the holding it lightly and the laughter is that we can read a text and hold it lightly. It's not like this isn't necessarily. We don't have to read everything as literal truth, and we also have to like don't hold everything up as this is the example that we want to follow. Part of the beauty of our texts is actually that we show our leaders, in negative lights many times, and so it's not always that these stories are meant to say this is prescriptive of what we're supposed to do. They open up a field of play. A field is a place you play, right? And there's a field where we play with meanings and we play with possibilities and we play with ways of trying out different understandings, and so on a, I guess I'm getting academic with my academic hat on. I think that there's something to that, and Lester, right? I know that's your business, right? So I think there's something there. We can continue that conversation. So just checking here, there's been a lot of good conversation as always in the chat, and here, Barry has one more question we can get in before we conclude. How does beginner's mind not morph into dangerous relativism? So it becomes alternative realities. You touched on this theme some yesterday, but still troubled by it. So here you go. You have a chance for a follow-up.
Perfect. We'll end on a light note.
Right.
Barry, thank you for your question. I'll say two things. One, with beginner's mind, what are we bringing that beginner's mind and that spirit of curiosity to? We're bringing it to our direct experience through the body in the present moment. So in that way, it's actually quite grounded, right? We are paying attention to not an alternative reality, but what is happening. And what I also hear in your question is a concern that if we let go of our value judgments, right? If we let go of that part of us that says this is good or this is bad, is that going to open up space for us to just say anything we want is good and anything that we want is bad, or to judge, whatever that we want? And what I want to offer actually is that beginner's mind creates space from our habituated modes of judgment and reactivity so that we can actually start to perceive what's happening with more clarity, giving us a chance to discern. So in a way, I would say beginner's mind actually helps us to do the opposite, to actually relate to our experiences, not from a place of reactive judgment that's really based on our past, but from a place of discernment that is deeply attuned to the present moment with the clarity of that direct encounter rather than through often many lenses of interpretation. Yeah. And something as anything in this practice always, it's really something for you to explore for yourself, to bring into your own practice. But I would encourage that exploration in the difference between judgment and discernment, and the way that mindfulness opens up more space for discernment when we're not just kind of automatically reacting based on our habits.
Rebecca, thank you so much. Just want to remind everybody that Purim involves not only the Megillah, reading and listening to the Megillah, but also, as I mentioned before, the most important is Matanot Levyonim, giving to the poor in your community. So really encourage you to engage in that, giving gifts to your friends, Mishloach Manot, and having hopefully a festive meal today. So thank you, and we'll see you again tomorrow on Shushan Purim. Who knows what will happen then? And day three of this week-long intensive with Rebecca. So thanks everybody. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach, Chag Purim Sameach. Much love, many blessings.